Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Fullerton. We are a loving spiritual community empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind.
I need to be still and let God love me. I need to be still and let God love me. When this old world starts to push and shove me, I need to be still and let God love me.
Good morning and God morning to all. I am Beverley Brezden, and it is my pleasure to serve as practitioner and host on this most beautiful Sunday morning. At this time, I invite you to take a few cleansing breaths to release from all the concerns of this day. And now let us gently go within to the inner haven of our being, where we commune with the divine. For it is right here and right now, in our unwavering recognition and confident belief that we feel and know that God is all there is, and that we are one with the eternal goodness and givingness of God. And for this we are blessed, and so very blessed, by the love and grace of God, within and without. And now with grateful hearts we honor and give thanks for our beautiful sanctuary, for Reverend Dr. Bill Salisbury for his inspiring and uplifting talk titled Giant Step Forward, for Tomoko Rosas, Director of Operations, who is filming our service, for Tommy Constantino, Music Director and Soloist, and for all of our beloved congregants who have given lovingly of their time, talent, and treasure to make this service a joyful celebration and deepening our connection with Spirit and with each other. And together in community we now say, and so it is. And for my reading today, I have chosen one from Alive with Spirit, written by Linda McNamara, minister at Centers for Spiritual Living, Laguna Woods. Creating happiness in a changing world. The grand essentials to happiness in this life are something to do, something to love, and something to hope for. Joseph Addison. Nearly every day, we meet people we have never met before. We have seen things we have never seen, and we hear new ideas. Nearly every day, we are touched by what we didn't know. We live in a world that is shiny and new every day. It is a product of our awareness, our clear intentions, and of our being together. How we approach this newness may mean the difference between living in joy and in living in fear. There may be conditions changing in our lives where we feel powerless. But powerless does not mean helpless or hopeless. When we recognize that our life is filled with divine possibilities, we can also see that no matter what our circumstances, we have the ability to bring love, hope, and action to our everyday. Happiness lives in our awareness of having a choice. Our ability to love influences our actions. It is out of these three things, love, hope, and action, that our individual lives create a healed and healthy body, a healed and healthy family, and a healed and healthy world. And now let us take this into prayer. Today I take the divine possibility called my life and mold it into activities of love and hope through me. I am restored to wholeness and well-being. By living with hope and happiness, I am guided into divine right action in my every experience. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
There is one love. There is one power. There is one life eternal. God lives through me. God lives through me. God lives through me.
Good morning, Fullerton Center for Spiritual Living people, wherever you are. I am Reverend Bill Salisbury, and as always, it's my absolute pleasure to be here. To be here in studio, so to speak, in the sanctuary, in our spiritual home, and to be in your homes also, knowing that each of us is always eternally and forever connected in spirit, in love, in our divinity, wherever we are at all times. So, with that in mind, I have a little story I'd like to begin with. It's a story about the family that relocated hundreds of miles from where they were living because one of the parents took a job. And part of the contract was that there was to be a residence for them. In addition to the job and the salary, they had a place to live. Well, it turns out that the timing wasn't quite right, and when they got to this new city, hundreds of miles from everything that they knew, their residence wasn't ready. They had to be put up in a hotel while they made the finishing touches so that the place was livable. Well, upper management for the company that they had just bought into thought that this was horrible, so they wanted to just go and make amends and personally set this aside a little bit. So the manager, the CEO, enters the hotel room and are meeting with the family and the two little kids sitting there and mom and dad sitting there, and he says, like almost right up front, he says, you know, I'm really sorry that this has happened, that we brought you out here and without a home. Well, the little 6-year-old girl looks at him and says, oh, we have the home. We're just looking for a house to put it in. And I know that we can relate to that because didn't we wait for a house to put it in? And yet, even though it was a hotel, we were still together as that family, that spiritual community. And that's how it's going to be right now. So right now we have the home and we have the house, but we've been kind of given the boot temporarily while we make some finishing touches to, not to it, but to the world around us, so that we're ready to come back together as a group. And we're all looking forward to that day. But meanwhile, there's absolutely no reason in the world to not remain connected and to not experience the unity that we are, not just that we have, but that we are. I want to talk for a minute about the helplessness thing that Beverley was talking about from Reverend Dr. Linda McNamar's book. Because I think that we can define or look at or appreciate helplessness from a couple of different standpoints. One, that feeling of helplessness, if we're dealing with something in our ordinary day-to-day living, is one thing. And it's true that helpless does not mean hopeless, because as long as we have, and not just the hope, if you listen to last week's talk, you know that my thinking on hope is that it's kind of halfway doubting or more, but still, it's the place of hope. Let's say faith. Let's say that we have the faith that everything is going to be okay. So we're not helpless in that regard. We're not helpless in saying that, wow, it's the end of the world. Nothing's ever going to be the same again. And it's true, you know, sometimes in cases where something is not going to be the same again, that's okay. That's part of the birth and rebirth cycle. We're going to get a little bit more to that in a minute. Let's get back to the helplessness. Sometimes, in some situations, helplessness is exactly what is called for. Because when we get to that point, to that stage where we realize and recognize and understand to the depth of our core that this is no longer something that we can manipulate or that we can tweak or that we can steer or that we can change, and we have to just say, God, you got this. I can't do this. So it's not helplessness as in there's never ever going to be any help. It's helplessness as in I can't help this situation, but I have a God who can help this situation. And really? Isn't that every situation? So we're into kind of trying times right now. Not that we haven't been in trying times before, because we have. And what has always brought us out of trying times, it's uniting as a community and setting that consciousness that will steer us out of troubled waters and into that joyous, happy, heavenly place that we really are living in and that we would like to maintain for as long as possible. Remembering that in this world, in this life, the only thing constant is change. And sometimes I think we allow that change to take a direction that we don't want it to. Now, I'm not the first guy or the only guy to ever say this. We have a history in our tradition of people dealing with and recognizing the root cause of problems, the root cause of suffering, and they have ever since we started this philosophy. So at bottom, we are a religious science community. This is science of mind. And in times of strife, in times of need, in times of wanting to be in a different position than we find ourselves in, that's no time to water down the teaching, right? That's the time to stand true to our roots in this teaching. silly me, not having these books behind my ear where I could just pull them down and read from them. But I just want to take a minute and talk about some of the people in our teaching from 100 or more years ago. Florence Scovel-Shinn. She said, "So man, please forgive the etiquette, writing etiquette of the day and the languaging," but that's, man back in that day meant humankind. "So man, in ignorance of the law, brings about his own destruction." Well, destruction is pretty harsh word, but the fact of the matter is the message here is applicable today. It's apropos right now as it was back then. All disease, all unhappiness come from the violation of the law of love. Man's boomerangs of hate, resentment, and criticism come back laden with sickness and sorrow. So now that we're all in the depths of despair, let me add that she also said this: all disease has a mental correspondence, and in order to heal the body, one must first heal the soul. And isn't that what we're about, is the healing of the soul? Is there a healing needed for this body that is us right now? I think a case could very well be made that there is. And once again, I know in our philosophy we say that there is no healing needed. All we need is a revealing of the truth of who we are. But sometimes our languaging is such that we have to use certain words to get the attention of our audience. And healing is one of those words, because it's the human condition to want healing, isn't it? Something goes wrong, we want healing. We don't want to hear, "Oh, it's all in your mind. It's all good. God will save the day," as if God had a little Mighty Mouse costume on and a cape and come swooping down from somewhere, because it doesn't work like that. Well, it works like that, except that there's no little mouse and no little flying thing in a cape. But yes, we do get saved by our faith that everything in this universe, some manner or other, conspires for our good. So, I know that's difficult to hear if you have a loved one or a family member or a friend or just anybody, because we can be concerned about each other worldwide, right? People that we've never physically met or heard about or will ever run into on the other side of the world are still our brothers and sisters in divinity. So yes, of course we're concerned about them. And it's a little difficult to hear right now that somehow this is all for our good. But wait, let's get a little deeper into why a possible thing could be happening here. Emma Curtis Hopkins, we all know and love her, in her Scientific Christian Mental Practice says, "There is always once at least when we are called to stand steady to our principles." So she's going to tell us this is not the time to abandon our spiritual principles. This is not the time to lose faith. This is in fact a time to hunker down. What is it? What's the current saying? Something in place. Stand in place, stay in place, hunker down in place. Well, where's the place? The place is where we are, but all places are in God, or in the divine. So we have to maintain our steadfastness in this knowing. She goes on to say, "We do not know the value of our high principles and laws until we test them in trial." And again, isn't it the case? It's real easy to say, "Oh, it's all good," when it is. When everything's going our way. Isn't it really easy? Sure. But if we're going to turn and run at the sign of serious trouble, what's that going to say about our spiritual practices, our principles? You know, one of the principles of science of mind is that there's a power greater than we are, and we can use it. And there's only one power, there's only one presence. That's the power and presence of God. Light, spirit, nature, consciousness, call it what we will. That's our principle, because we believe that we can use the power of that mind to control conditions. So if we say that's the case, how does that work if we abandon that because we have some problems right now? It can't. You know, a very long time ago, I learned that people that we call heroes, and they are heroes by our definition, make no mistake about it, but the people that we ascribe that term to, they're just ordinary people doing what they know has to be done in spite of the fear that they feel. Make no mistake about it, heroes, the very first thing that happens is fear, just like the rest of us. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I mean, we are designed with that fight or flight syndrome. That's part of being human. It's part of being an animal. And we are animals, in a manner of speaking. So it's not to say that you shouldn't have fear. Fear is a natural reaction to things we don't understand that come out of left field and impinge upon our world. But when we have faith and we have a spiritual practice and we adhere to spiritual principles, and not just by talking about them, but actually adhering to them, being involved in them and immersed in them, then we understand that that fear is okay. We're going to do what we need to do in spite of that fear. And we're not going to let it control us. We're going to inwardly say something like, hello, fear, didn't invite you. Don't want you, but I know that you're here. But just so we're clear, you're not here to stay. Because me and my partner, God, are going to see to it that your tenure here is very short-lived indeed. So, how I digress. Back to Emma. Take your hardest trial and put some denial and affirmation before it. Then stand by your denial and affirmation. Stand firm. Nothing is sure at all in your life until it has been put through the furnace, which is the meeting of the opposite to it with its noble steadfastness to itself. And she goes on to say, firmness, that firmness in the face of trauma, that firmness in our conviction, in our spiritual principle, is poise. It's balance of character. Balance, poise of character is a great healing quality. We become healers of disease according to our poise of character. Make no mistake about it. We have doctors, we have a medical community, and these are scientists. And scientists help us navigate the world. They truly do. But nature is not to be controlled by us. Nature can be directed by us. The scientists, nature sets its own law. The laws of nature are there. Have you noticed that? The laws of nature are there, just like the spiritual laws are there. And they're the laws of the game. They're the rules of the game. Scientists help us to navigate and understand those rules and work our way, like a chutes and ladder game, right? Yeah, you get the wrong number, you're down the chute. But always, 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 there's another ladder to come back up. So we got that going for us. Life knows only to live and live and live. So there are always going to be instances where life is such that it just goes away from this body, some bodies, but it going away from this body doesn't mean it has ended. It only means it has gone to a different dimension. There's no death in life. Life is continuous. It's a rebirth after rebirth after rebirth. Only in different dimensions. And just because we can't see those dimensions, remember, invisible does not mean it's not in existence. It just means we don't get to see it. Have you ever looked at a body of water, a lake, a river, the ocean, when it's smooth and calm, and seen the reflection of the sun or the moon in it? We all have. That reflection can change. It can go away. But because that reflection has gone away, does that mean that the sun or the moon went away? No. It just means that the reflection is no longer there. We, as human bodies here, we are reflections of the divine. We're divine expressions. So, if you're going to say if, well, it's not an if, it's when our body goes away, that reflection is no longer in this same place at this same time, but it has not affected the self, capital S, the I am, that each of us is. So that's just addressing the really furthest, most depressing end that can come of current situations, illness, sickness, like that, okay? And we don't want that to happen, of course we don't. But if it does, let's just know that we're still all together in God. Ralph Waldo Trine, in his book, In Tune with the Infinite, said, "When you allow thoughts of anger, hatred, malice, jealousy, envy, criticism, or scorn to exercise sway, they have a corroding and poisoning effect on the organism. They pull it down, and if allowed to continue, will eventually tear it to pieces by externalizing themselves into particular forms of disease they give rise to." It's pretty strong stuff. It's pretty strong stuff from each of these iconic people in our teaching. But does any of that sound familiar? I mean, really? Mother Teresa said that all disruption of the world begins at home. Home can be our house. It can be our family. It can be our community. It can be our city, our state, our nation, our world. It begins here. It doesn't come from somewhere else. If there's illness, dis-ease, remember, dis-ease in the world, which there is right now, that dis-ease is just simply not simply, I don't want to make light of this, but dis-ease is, in its end result, a separation from God. And if we are separated from God, we are separated from each other. If we're separated from each other, we're separated from God. Do we see how that works? If we are separated at all, and by separation I do mean things like, if we're not loving our neighbor, if we are exhibiting sarcasm, scorn, prejudice, bigotry, unacceptance, differentiation, accusation because you don't look like I. We can't do that and expect the world to be a unified force. when our consciousness as a global community is split, there's going to be some tension. There's going to be some better days, some worse days. And if we allow it to be taken over by the worst days, by acquiescing to and accepting the status quo, if the status quo is one of separation and divisiveness rather than a community, unity, and love, we're not going to get to that point where we want to be. We're not going to have that world that works for everybody that we talk about in this teaching. But even in cases when we don't have control of what's going on around us, what do we have control of? We have control of what's going on within us. And isn't that where it starts? If all the problems of the world begin at home, our job and our only job is to make sure that at home for each of us is not a place where that can happen. This is not a time to lose our center. This is a time for humility rather than arrogance and bravado and bluster. Rick Warren over here at Saddleback Church says that humility, because that's what we need right now, and he said that humility is not denying our strengths. We have those strengths. We have the strength to overcome this. Humility is just recognizing and being honest about our weaknesses and allowing our strengths to play and subduing the weaknesses. He also said humility is not thinking less of yourself, because there's no reason to think less of ourselves. We are made in the image and likeness of God. There's nothing we cannot do. So it's not about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. And that's what we need to do in this time, especially in these trying times. Mahatma Gandhi said that we must keep an undivided singleness of mind. That's what we need right now. That's our charge. Keep that undivided singleness of mind and know that as a community, it is our consciousness that will bring us out from this. It is our consciousness, is our love for one another and our love of community that will stay the course of health, happiness for us. Thank you. Speaking of staying the course, we are staying the course as a spiritual community. And we so appreciate each of you for helping us stay that course. So at this time, if you wish, if you're so inclined, please go to our website and show your support. And we know everybody is active, loyal, and supporting in this congregation. And we appreciate that and give great thanks for it. And right now would be a time, if you care to donate to help keep us on task and on stride and where we need to be through this, would be greatly appreciated. So thank you very much.
I've seen my share of struggles when I thought that I knew best, when I've sailed through the storm instead of stopping to rest. And it always seems the hardest when I made up my stubborn mind. Well, I'm changing my ways this time. Wanna be like water going down the mountain in the shadowy canyon, going from pool to stream. Wanna be like water without hill no more. I am now over the sea. Have you ever seen an eagle head straight into the wind? He doesn't pick a fight, spreads his wings and just gives in. And in the always makes it home just fine. I guess he knows that every storm subsides. I wanna be like water going down the mountains in shadowy canyons, going from pool to stream. Wanna be like water and until no more I am bound for the sea. I'll let nature take its course. No more thinking that I know where this river's meant to go. I've railed against the stars for the cards that I've been dealt, for the lottery I never won, for the heartache that I felt. But it always seems when I let go of expectations and regrets, life has plenty of surprises for me yet. I wanna be like water going down the mountains, shadowy canyons, going from pool to stream. Wanna be like water and until no more I am bound for the sea. Wanna be like water going down the mountains in the shadowy canyons, going from pool to stream. Wanna be like water and until no more I am bound for the sea.
Wow, this place is rocking. So everybody at home right now, I want you to draw the attention by hooting and hollering so loud and clapping that those people walking on the sidewalk out front turn and look and see what's going on in there. How can these people be jubilant like this? Tommy Cosentino caused that, by the way. It's a world of cause and effect, is it not? So, please know with me that although we can't join together right now physically in community, that we are always thinking of you wherever you are. And that our phone lines and our emails are always open to you. As the core council of the Center for Spiritual Living Fullerton is always thinking of you and doing things in our best interest. And the ecclesiastic team, meaning all the practitioners and myself, are available, are here for you. So if you want to call or email and talk, if you want to just chat about something your kitten did to make you laugh, or about how to attain world peace, we're here to talk to you, talk with you, and to pray for you, pray with you. So thank you. And knowing that, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being in our consciousness and part of our community. And let's just, we have to do the closing affirmation, even if we're not all together, right? So you can still, in your home, say after me, something wonderful is happening through me right now. I hear that. It is this thing called love. It is this thing called life. It is this thing called community. It is this thing called God consciousness. And it is that will see us through. I know this. I believe it. I accept it. And together we say, and so it is. So it is.